You know what's easy? Talking about low-value men. But what's harder and far more powerful is recognizing the quiet, subtle signs that you are becoming something greater. This isn't about cars, money, watches, or fake alpha talk. This is about the deep, psychological transformation that happens when a man begins to integrate himself. Real power doesn't shout. It doesn't need applause. It grows in silence, and then the world begins to feel it. Today, we're breaking down 10 signs you're becoming a high-value man, even if you haven't realized it yet. And behind each of these signs lies a deeper truth, a Jungian truth about integration, shadow work, and becoming whole. Sign 1: you're comfortable being alone. Weak men fear silence. They run from their own company. They fill every quiet moment with distraction, stimulation, or noise. But the moment you begin to grow in value, something changes. You stop needing the crowd. You stop fearing solitude. You learn to stand in your own presence, and it stops feeling empty. It begins to feel powerful. Jung spoke often about the necessity of withdrawing from the collective. He believed that a man cannot truly find himself while drowning in external noise. Solitude, he said, is the space where the true self begins to speak. When you can sit alone without feeling worthless. When you can walk alone and still feel whole. You're no longer tied to validation. You're becoming anchored in yourself. High-value men don't build their worth on who's watching. They build it in the quiet when no one is looking. Sign 2: you keep your word. Powerful men are not defined by how loud they speak. They're defined by whether their words carry weight. Low-value men say they'll change, but never do. They make promises like confetti, cheap, disposable, forgotten. High-value men, however, understand a deeper principle. Your word is your will in the world. It's how your psyche begins to trust itself. Jung said, "A man who cannot keep his promises to himself loses his soul in the noise of the world." When you begin to keep even the smallest commitments to yourself, your morning routine, your health, your mission, something inside you hardens. Self-respect grows. And when that happens, others feel it too. They may not know why, but your word begins to have gravity. Power doesn't need to shout. It simply does what it said it would do. Sign 3: you no longer seek constant validation. Most men build their identity on what others reflect back at them. Likes, approval, being seen. Their entire self is a mirror without a center. But there comes a point in your growth when that mirror cracks. You no longer need to be seen to feel real. Your worth stops being up for negotiation. Carl Jung spoke about individuation, the process of becoming your true self, not the mask you wear for the world. This process requires breaking the addiction to external validation. When you stop chasing applause, you start hearing your own voice again. When you stop performing, you begin to live. A man on the path of individuation doesn't dress himself for approval. He becomes himself. This is one of the most subtle signs of high value. You stop begging the world to tell you who you are. You already know. Sign 4: you can regulate yourself under pressure. Pressure reveals character. It doesn't lie. When chaos hits, when someone disrespects you, when your plans fall apart, do you lose control? Or do you breathe, stay centered, and act with intention? High-value men have mastered something Jung would call conscious integration. They don't pretend emotions don't exist. They allow them to rise, but they don't let them lead. Jung believed that a man's power came from awareness of his inner forces. The shadow, the rage, the fear. But if those forces remain unconscious, they control him. When you can regulate your nervous system under pressure, when you can hold the fire without burning the world down, You are no longer a boy reacting. You are a man leading. Sign 5. You're becoming harder to manipulate. People can only control what they can trigger. When your worth depends on other people, you're easy to manipulate. But when you've faced your own darkness, when you've looked into your shadow and made peace with it, fewer things can shake you. Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. This is what makes high-value men so steady. They know themselves. Their triggers aren't mysterious anymore. Their wounds aren't driving the car in silence. When you know yourself, you stop falling for every game. You stop reacting like a puppet. And the world begins to adjust to you. Sign 6. You're ruthlessly honest with yourself. This is one of the hardest steps, because growth always begins in the mirror. At some point, the lies you tell yourself become unbearable. You stop saying, "I'll change tomorrow." You stop blaming your past. You stop acting like a victim in your own story. You face the raw, uncomfortable truth. Jung believed that real transformation begins with shadow confrontation, the willingness to face the parts of ourselves we've denied. Low-value men bury their flaws. High-value men bring them to light. They don't do it for applause. They do it because they want to own themselves completely. Honesty is painful, but it's the foundation of strength. Sign 7. You have a clear sense of direction. You don't need to have your entire life mapped out, but you need to be moving. Direction is magnetic. It's what gives a man presence, focus, gravity. Jung once said that a man who lacks a myth will be possessed by one unconsciously. What he meant is, if you don't choose your path, the world will choose it for you. And you'll call it destiny. High-value men write their own myth. Even if they don't have all the answers, they have clarity about what matters to them. They move towards something bigger than comfort. And people can feel that energy. It's the opposite of drifting. Sign 8. You set and defend boundaries. Low-value men crave being liked. High-value men choose to be respected. When you start valuing yourself, your energy, your time, you stop letting people walk over you. You stop explaining your worth to those who don't see it. Boundaries are not walls. They're doors. They decide who gets access to your life. Jung's work centered on integration of the self, and part of that is learning where you end and the world begins. A man without boundaries dissolves. A man with boundaries stands. You don't have to scream your worth. You simply live it. Sign 9. You're more grounded than reactive. The average man reacts like a leaf in the wind. One insult and he explodes. One rejection and he collapses. But the integrated man stands like a tree with deep roots. The storm may blow, but he remains. Jung described individuation as a centering process, a movement toward the self. The deeper your roots go inward, the less external chaos can throw you off balance. Grounded men don't need to perform strength. Their stillness is their strength. And that energy is unmistakable. Sign 10. You inspire without trying. This is the final sign. And it's the one you may not even notice happening. When you stop pretending, when you've faced your shadow, when your actions speak louder than your words, something shifts. People start to feel your presence. Not because you're trying to be inspiring, but because you've become real. Jung believed that when a man integrates his shadow, embraces his inner opposites, and steps into his self, he becomes an archetype in motion, a living image of the strength others are searching for. You lead without trying. You inspire without speaking, because your energy carries weight. Here's the truth most men never hear. You don't become high value overnight. It's not a mask. It's not an act. It's a psychological transformation. Carl Jung spent his life showing that the deepest power in a human being lies in integration, in facing your shadow, in becoming whole. High value isn't about status. It's about self-possession. It's about becoming a man who no longer runs from himself. And when you reach that point, the world begins to bend around you. If some of these signs resonated with you, you're already walking the path. Keep going, keep integrating, and let your quiet strength speak louder than the noise.